So we are now recording. Anything you say will be on video, unless you're muted. And you should be able to see the slides. And we want to talk about, first thing, what is government? Do we need government? Now, you're not going to have to know a definition. Well, you might need to know a definition for the test, which is, and I believe this is on page 5 of your textbook. But when we think about government, we're just thinking about basically the structures that are used by a nation, a city, a state, maybe a larger group like the European Union or the United Nations. It's a structure that has rules and it has procedures for how to rule over the population. In America, you'll want to know these 3 values that are highlighted there. These are 3 core values that are very important to us: liberty, equality, and democracy. Our country has never gotten to the point where these 3 things are perfectly applied to every person in our nation, okay? But we are always working to the ideal situation where all people, all American citizens, have equal liberty, equal equality, equal democracy. But we're not there yet, but we're always working towards that. Now you've heard the word politics. How does politics differ from government? Government is the structure, the institutions, which tries to apply the rules and procedures for all people. And government is also, government has the responsibility of protecting their people and protecting their rights, which includes protecting their physical well-being, their property. Politics is more about the workings of government. Our textbook defines it as conflicts and struggles over the leadership, structure, and policies of government. Now, I've added another little definition down here, which I think is a good one. A guy named Harold Laswell, who is a political scientist, came up with this definition. Very simple. Politics is the struggle over who gets what, when, and how. Who gets what, when they get it, and how they get it. Now, this is in your textbook. Politics will refer to the conflicts over the government's leadership, how the government is organized, and what its policies are. So it's a conflict, politics, over who's going to get what, how much of the pie is everybody going to get, when they're going to get it, how they're going to get it. All right, any questions? Any questions? So know what government is, know what politics are. Incidentally and curiously, on my part, is anybody considering a career in political science? Just curious. And it doesn't mean you have to be a politician. You could be like that guy, Harold Leswell, a professional political scientist. You just study the science of government and politics. And you maybe write textbooks that college students have to buy at an outrageous price. Or you teach political science at a university. Just curious if anyone was interested in that. All righty, so your textbook mentions different types of government. I want to look at it from this perspective. Who is the one that does the ruling? And you can basically put all kinds of governments under these 4 categories. If nobody is ruling, that is pretty chaotic, and we call it an anarchy. Chaos, violence, people doing what they feel is right in their own eyes. We don't want anarchy. Let me give you a modern cultural illustration. Someone have a question? Any Dark Knight fans? The Batman movies with Christian Bale? The Dark Knight Rises, the 3rd movie. When Bane and his minions overtake the city. And the woman who plays Catwoman, the Catwoman and her roommate start living in someone else's house. That's anarchy. There's no rules. And you see the Catwoman, she starts to have a conscience about this was somebody's house. This was where a family lived. The other girl didn't care. That's anarchy, where nobody rules and everybody can just fight for what they want. Alrighty, if one person rules, like in this classroom, where Mr. Beams is king, that's a monarchy or a dictatorship. Now, I told you I'm going to be more like a monarch. I'm going to be like a good king who gives his subjects food and freedom. And we're going to have festivals and balls at the castle where we dress up and play croquet and all that kind of fun stuff. Think of that old Leonardo DiCaprio movie, The Man in the Iron Mask, except Leo was a bad king. I'm going to be the good king in this class. But anyway, joking aside, when our country was formed, there were still a lot of these kinds of governments, monarchies, where the king or the queen ruled and they had absolute power. Now, when the few rule, sometimes it's called a junta, sometimes it's called an oligarchy. I'm not that much of a political scientist, so I don't remember exactly what a junta is. If someone knows what that is, or you have Google real fast, you can tell us what it is. But an oligarchy is where the few, whether they have power and wealth, military power, it might be junta might be a military oligarchy, but the few are calling the shots. And then where all people rule, democracy. And you can see there's even two kinds of democracy, a direct democracy and a representative democracy. What kind of democracy is our country? Bueller. Does Vianne have their hand raised? No.
I'm smart, I promise. What did you say?
Is the United States a direct or representative? Yes, sir.
Representative?
Yeah, representative.
Right.
Yay for the Razorbacks.
The point for the bats.
100 professor points or 100 instructor points to the Razorbacks. Yes, I will be giving instructor points throughout the semester. What they are good for, nobody knows, but I like to give them. All right, so we are representative democracy. A lot of people don't realize that. They think we are a straight up democracy, but we elect people to be our representatives. And as you will learn in this class, and you may have heard of it, but it's a little fuzzy in your thinking, even our presidential elections are not a direct democracy. We have this thing called the Electoral College. So, but anyway, we all do have, if we're 18 and older, we do have the privilege of being a part of government. Do you realize that before the founding of our representative democracy, pretty much everybody who lived in history before that time were in these types of governments? So the United States of America has been a laboratory of democracy. And now there are many, many democracies and representative governments. Now, we're not going to go over all these, but under these four big categories, you would find 16 different types of governments. Again, these will be on the course homepage if you want to read over them. We are a republic, a democratic republic, but these are the many different types of governments that fall underneath those four big categories. Now, I have our textbook pulled up. I believe I do.
Anytime anybody comes down, he's so complicated. Like, he's actually really nice. Dude, I'm not how friends like he's so
Yeah. Actually, that's my copy.
Yeah. I'm friends with the whole house.
All right, can you see the textbook?
I use Kai.
Yeah.
And so, and then
I don't like it.
Can you see that, Keely, on the screen? Okay. All righty, let me go back very quickly and someone tell me when it's 11:40 because I want to have 10 minutes to 10 minutes to go over the chapter's outline. So this is page now 21 in your book. I might be thinking of my textbook. Let me go back to the slides. So our government, our founding fathers were influenced by a lot of French philosophers. and other political scientists back in the 17th, 18th century.
I think he is.
Guys like Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, George Washington were influenced by these people. One guy was named John Locke.
I feel so bad about
Now, I want you to know who John Locke is. I want you to know who John Stuart Mill is. There's another guy named Thomas Hobbes that we'll look at probably Friday. But all these guys, these were philosophers. They wrote and expounded on government and democracy and freedom and rights. And so John Locke is a very influential man upon our government. He believed that the government's purpose was to protect the natural rights of people. And those natural rights are life, liberty, and property. Now that sounds familiar, doesn't it? Because in our Declaration of Independence, we have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
I don't mean anything I say. No, nobody said. I actually think it's really good.
John Locke said if government violates people's natural rights, it can be and it should be replaced. This guy is a major influence on Jefferson, who wrote the Declaration of Independence, in which he wrote that when a government, AKA the English government, starts to do things that basically is oppressing another people, AKA the 13 colonies, we should break away from that government and form our own government. And then John Locke believed that all men are equal before the law, although not every man is equal. Not every man is equal in talents. Not everyone is equal concerning their wealth, their social status, but all men are equal before the law. John Stuart Mill, this is a better picture than the one in your textbook because you can see this humongous thing here, and I've always wondered what that is. I'm wondering if his wife hit him that day with a frying pan and he had to take a picture with a big knot on his head. But anyway, he was not a knothead, that's for sure. He was a pretty smart guy, although technically he was a knothead. But anyway, I digress. Mills believed that the individual should be free to do as he or she wishes, as long as you don't hurt somebody else. So he was really big in the right of the individual. He believed that individuals they possess reason, and so they can make decisions about their own well-being. We don't need the government to be a big brother and tell us how to live our lives. Government should interfere only when they need to protect the larger society. He believed strongly in freedom of speech. He believed that a free discourse is necessary for our society to progress. And then he favored what was called the harm principle. The only purpose for which power can be rightfully exercised over any member of a civilized community against the will of that person is to prevent harming other people. All right. So we're going to stop there. So we can go over the chapter's outline. Here's kind of the plan for the rest of the week.
Okay, but why do you have that sort of sentence?
Finish chapter 1 and chapter 2 on Wednesday. So go ahead and read those chapters. Chapter 3 will start on Friday. We've got to zip through these 4 chapters.
I don't like it.
Actually, I'm getting way ahead of myself. We won't start chapter 3 until next Monday. So we're going to finish chapters 1 and 2 for the rest of the week. All right, what do I want you to do on the chapter's outline assignment?
I don't know.
Pretty self-explanatory. You're going to outline the chapters.
No.
All right, so can you see the textbook here? So right now I'm in chapter 1, and if you want to get back to the beginning of the chapter real easy, just go over here to this drop-down menu. Chapter 1, the beginning. And so the way you're gonna do a full sentence outline, which means this. Every chapter begins with this little opening monologue, I'm going to call it. It's going to be in this light aqua color, and this is not a part of your outline, okay?
Let's see.
Now, you do want to use the title of the chapter. Can you guys hear me?
We can't see your textbook.
Okay, I'm sorry. Who was that? Which class?
It's Panama.
All right, let me try it again. How about now?
Yeah.
Okay. So for chapter 1 outline, you'll just want to put chapter 1, American political culture. That's your big Roman numeral number 1. And then all this stuff in the teal color is just monologue. You're not gonna start there. You're gonna start with the first major point. So underneath your Roman numeral number 1 will then be your
That's how you
English
do it.
number 1, or if you want to use letter A, and you want to write in a full sentence. And I don't care if you use the exact sentence here in the book. Differentiate between, actually, you want to change that into a sentence. There are different forms of government. That's an example. That's a full sentence. All right. So that will be your main points, which you will find in the chapter. Write them out as a full sentence. Now, your subpoints do not have to be sentences. You can copy your subpoints the way it is, like, is government needed? So forms of government, you're gonna put these subpoints.
I'm sorry, can you go over that first part again?
Yeah.
I had someone talking to me, the, like, where we turned it into sentences.
Okay, so let me go back to the first page.
I know. Oh, gosh,
So you begin your number, your first number, your first part of your outline is going to be chapter 1, of course.
First part of it, chapter 1.
You're going to use a Roman numeral number 1, which looks like an I, and you're going to put American political culture. Now, don't worry, I'm going to have an example included in the assignment, but Roman numeral number 1, chapter 1, American political culture. Then you go past that opening part, and then your first point underneath Roman numeral number 1, you can either use American number 1 or a letter A. And this is where you'll write your first full sentence. The first section is called government. And you can use that and this little clue here to write your sentence. There are several forms of government. That would be your first main point. And that is a sentence. There are several forms of government. Now, that's just an example. You can word it however you want to, but it needs to be a sentence.
How do you know your things?
Then all of the subpoints underneath your main section are going to be in this red print. You don't have to do these in sentences. You can just write them, type them the way they are in the book. So all of these red points go under your first main point. Your next main section will be in blue.
I mentioned Nate not answering. What I do was
This will be B, or this will be number 2, whatever you want to use. Take this title and use your clue to write the next sentence. And again, put your subpoints underneath it, if there are subpoints. Now, let me just share with you that the more detail you give in your outline, the better grade you get. So, for example, underneath this subpoint, forms of government, you have autocracy, oligarchy, democracy. I would list them underneath that as subpoints. That will just enhance your outline. So I know that was kind of quick. I'm sure there was a little confusion there. I will give an example beginning with this first chapter. It'll be a part of the assignment to show you how to do it, okay? So don't panic. Any questions? This time has been real. This time has been fun. I think it's been real fun. How about you? You don't have to
Yes.
answer that. But anyway,
Yeah.
Dylan,
so get started on reading chapters 1 and 2. See you back here on Wednesday, 11 o'clock, where we will have our Will Rogers Wednesday lesson. So if there's no questions, we'll see you then.